Outspoken rugby pundit Mark Watson has called for Ardie Savea to follow Scott Robertson out the door at New Zealand Rugby, claiming the All Black star overstepped the mark during the review process that ultimately led to the head coach's dismissal. New Zealand Rugby recently completed a comprehensive review of the 2025 international season, concluding that the All Blacks were not on track for the 2027 Rugby World Cup in Australia. That assessment resulted in the unprecedented decision to remove Robertson from his role, making him the first All Blacks head coach to be actively sacked rather than allowed to step down at the end of a contract. While much of the fallout has focused on Robertson and his coaching staff, Watson believes responsibility should not lie solely with the coaches. Speaking on the DSBN Live show with Martin Devlin, he argued that senior players, particularly Savea, must also be held accountable to Savea's role in the review. As part of the review, New Zealand Rugby's board and high-performance department consulted several players, including Centurion Ardie Savea. According to reports from a New Zealand Herald, Savea was among those who were seriously unhappy with the coaching setup under Robertson. The report also suggested the 32-year-old was considering his future in New Zealand if changes were not made. That included the possibility of extending his stay in Japan or even moving to Europe, with Leinster mentioned as a potential destination, a move that would render him ineligible for All Black selection ahead of and during the 2027 World Cup. For Watson, that crossed a line that he accused Savea of effectively blackmailing New Zealand Rugby by attaching conditions to his feedback during the review process. "If you want to be brutally honest, be brutal," Watson said. "But do not have a caveat on the end of it where you then go, oh, by the way, if you don't get rid of him, I'm gone, and I'm going to stay overseas." Watson claimed this approach undermines the integrity of the review process and places excessive power in the hands of players. That's sort of what has been reported, and that's what I've heard, that one particular senior player, Ardie Savea, wasn't prepared to play under this coaching group going forward, he said. "I don't like that. No player is bigger than the sport." Watson went further, stating that if such claims are accurate, Savea should also be dismissed from the national setup. "For those reasons, I would also sack Ardie Savea," he said. "You make a statement to the players. Feel free to give us all the feedback in the world, but do not go and blackmail us. No player is bigger than the sport." It is a stance that immediately divided opinion. Host Martin Devlin pushed back, pointing out that Savea remains one of the best players in the world and a hugely popular figure among supporters. "You're still talking about one of the best players in the world," Devlin said. "And not only that, he's enormously popular. Imagine what the public reaction would be if that were the case." Watson, however, remained unmoved, arguing that player power has become a growing problem within New Zealand Rugby. Player power under scrutiny, according to Watson. The issues go beyond Savea and speak to a wider cultural problem. "We've got to make a statement on this player power," he said. "Last year, we had TJ Perenara hijacking the haka to put forward political viewpoints, and nothing was said or done. We've got players deciding to just up and go and do these sabbaticals." Devlin countered that many of those situations occurred under the previous New Zealand Rugby board, suggesting the landscape has now changed under new chairman David Kirk. "I think David Kirk is signaling here that this is a different administration," Devlin said, pointing to Robertson's removal as evidence of a tougher stance. Watson agreed, insisting that Kirk's leadership marks a shift away from the traditionally cautious approach taken by New Zealand Rugby. "That's what I'm saying. Make a signal, make a point," Watson responded. "This is significant, a ruthless but necessary decision despite his harsh criticism." Watson acknowledged that dismissing Robertson was a major call and one that represents a cultural change within the sport. "It's one of the biggest sports stories in New Zealand in the last 20 years, he said. "I can't remember an All Blacks coach ever being sacked." Watson was careful to separate the person from the role, describing Robertson as a good man who simply fell short in a results-driven environment. "Good guy, great family man, quirky, loves the surfing, but when you become the All Blacks coach, all of that gets put to one side," he said. "This is a performance industry. For a long time, professional sport in New Zealand has been at about 95%, but we've never really bought into coach accountability." He believes New Zealand Rugby has historically been reluctant to make hard decisions due to the country's small size and interconnected nature. "We've been too caught up in personality. It's such a small country. There's so many conflicts of interest, and upsetting people has always been hard for New Zealanders. In that context, Watson praised Kirk's decisiveness. David Kirk has come in and been absolutely ruthless, and I think that's a good sign going forward. He said, "What comes next?" While Watson maintained sympathy for Robertson on a personal level, he reiterated that results must always come first at international level. When you're dealing with human beings, sometimes you need to humanize them, he said. But I've been calling for Scott Robertson to be sacked for the last 12 months. With Robertson gone, attention will now turn to the future direction of the All Blacks, including how much influence players should have in shaping leadership decisions. Whether or not Watson's call for action against Savea gains traction, the debate has exposed deep tensions around accountability, authority, and power within New Zealand rugby at a critical moment in its history.